My next guest says one of the best things you could do for your marriage is to change your mind. Not about the marriage, but about what you think about your marriage. Because if you change your thoughts, you change your relationship, says Studio 5 contributor Dr. Liz Hale. I am so into this topic and this concept. The research you're putting forward, Liz, I was just kind of perusing through it. It's really fascinating to me.
Well, we used to just study stuck and struggling couples, right? Hoping that if we studied them and understood them, we'd know what makes a happy couple.
Like the opposite.
Successful. And it's just doesn't hold out, doesn't pan out. It was an interesting study done at the University State of New York, and they asked happy couples, those that said that they were happy, to rate themselves and also their partners on various traits like kindness and happiness, openness, sociability. And it was so interesting what they found out, that across the board, the happiest couples were those that rated their partners higher than themselves. That's what led to happy marriages, how they viewed their partner. Now, these partners weren't more perfect, right? They're just mere mortals like the rest of us, but it was something about the perspective of the partner and how they saw them.
So speaking to this idea that if I change my thoughts, if I change how I think about my partner, I could see a positive impact on my overall relationship.
It's focusing on the things that are good, and there's so many good things.
Yeah, you say this requires a growth mindset.
That's right.
In your marriage, which Emmy's learning a lot about growth mindset in 2nd and 3rd grade.
Is she really?
Yeah, she preaches and promotes it a lot at our dinner table.
I love that.
How does that affect a marriage, though? Growth mindset in marriage.
Carol Dweck is actually the researcher on that, and she said there's either a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. Have you heard about fixed?
Emmy's told me all about it.
Emmy, I'm so proud of her. So the fixed mindset is just like, you know what, it is what it is. This is just how we are.
It's not going to get better.
Right?
We are who we are. Okay.
Yep. The growth mindset is I'm open to the idea that my thinking is stinking. I'm open to the idea that I could change, and I can change how I view my partner. It really is all about perception. I feel like I keep preaching that and preaching that. I'm sure my clients are tired of it, but it is just so true. That really is the key to a happy relationship. And any relationship is how I think about that person.
So I'm thinking of that old phrase, mind over matter. That's kind of what's at stake here. Mind over matter.
I suppose so. It's the things I focus on grow, right? And I just see more evidence of them.
You are going to walk us through a series of questions designed to help us check our own thought patterns. I'm guessing this requires a level of honesty.
Yeah, true. And you know, shift happens, right? It does. We can shift our thinking and we can change our lives. And it always starts with home base, right? It always starts with me. We often say that a healthy we starts with a healthy me, and truer words have not been spoken. You know, there's this Fred in my head, and he's, how do I put this kindly? He's just plain rude, right? He says the worst things about me, things I would never say to anybody else, things about my worth and my work. And just imagine that I show up with Fred in my head at home. I've just gone through the social media and I see that, you know, a friend from high school is doing really well. And so Fred tells me I don't measure up, right? Or Fred tells me nobody likes you at work, or you know, you just really don't have any friends. And then I show up in my marriage and I tell you, I promise you that colors everything. What you think about yourself, what you say to yourself colors your marriage, because my energy precedes me. Trust me, my husband will feel it as I walk in the door. He's going to think it's about him. I'm not happy with him, and in reality, I'm not happy with me. So we really do have to focus back on who am I really? You know, a lot of people who are Christians say, you know, I'm created in his image, right? God made me. And I couldn't really relate to that as a teenager, but I could relate to Jack and Peggy, my parents. And I thought, you know, they're pretty cool people, so maybe I'm not so bad either. Right? So think about who you are and get rid of Fred in your head.
Goodbye, Fred.
Goodbye, Fred.
Goodbye, Fred in my head. I love that. And the way you spoke about it translating into our relationships really does resonate and make sense. The next question is, what do I think about him? What do I think about my spouse?
Right. Marriage is not nearly as complicated as it is close. You know, we collide usually typically in our weaknesses. The real problem is that my spouse gets in the way of me having my way. And usually a person who does that is kind of the enemy. But we overlap each other a lot. So how you think of your spouse determines how you feel about them, obviously, right? Dr. Helen Fisher, she did some really interesting studies with couples who, again, deemed themselves very happily married after at least 21 years of marriage. And she studied the brain, and she found that in particular one area of the brain that was responsible for optimism is really where these couples lit up the most. And they were the happiest in their satisfaction of marriage, their personal satisfaction, their sense of security, there is less conflict, less doubt, and lasting intimacy.
How interesting.
Yes,
Yeah.
all by what lit up in the brain by how they treat each other and what they say to themselves about the other.
Well, we say all the time that internal dialogue does become reality, so to speak.
Yeah,
so
it
implying that
does.
to the people we love, my internal dialogue about my husband or my wife, like
Yeah.
how is that going to impact how I treat, how I react, how I feel? This next question I'm curious about. We often say, I'm not responsible for someone else's emotions, but
Yeah.
you say our thoughts about our partner's emotions can play a
Yes.
role here too.
Well, have you ever had this thought about your partner in marriage, like, why is he acting that way? Why is he making something, why is he just overreacting to something that was so small? I can't believe he got so upset about something so
We
silly.
never think like that, do
I
we?
can't believe that he thought that show was funny. What is it with him? What's wrong with him? So absolutely, we all have these thoughts and feelings, and the way we respond to them is really the key. It's
Yeah.
like, you know what, I don't know, that's just Ben.
Yeah.
It's just how he operates. It's just what he thinks is funny.
Yeah.
And I can just enjoy him enjoying that show. I don't have to feel the same way about that show.
Yeah.
I love that he loves it.
Love that. Love that.
Yeah.
What do you think about your responses? That's the next prompting question.
Right. You know, the tongue has all the power, doesn't it, of life and death, the things that we say. Marriage is this cause for pause, I like to say. Pausing leads to better responses, and better responses leads to better marriages. So pause is really the key. That's what even John Gottman discovered in studying the marriage. He found the marriage masters amidst the marriage disasters, is that these marriage masters would just take a beat. They would just take a pause before they responded. Right? Just a deep breath and just saying, you know, I see you, I hear you, I get you, I've got your back. There's some really powerful phrases that I am practicing with even at home, but pausing is really just the superpower, Brooke.
And finally, this feels like a superpower question, the last kind of point of self-reflection. What do you think is the purpose of marriage? Is the question you want us to ask ourselves.
Right. Because so oftentimes in marriage we think, what is this about, right? Infertility, intimacy, and in-laws, so many things are unfair. So I think knowing the purpose of marriage not only gets us through the tough stuff, but it helps us enjoy the great stuff. So of course, I think the purpose of marriage is to love first. I like to think of a couple racing to the end of a long line, right, to get in line, and they're kind of tripping over each other like, you go first, no, you go first, no, you go, no, you go. Just putting love first. That really, I think, is the element of marriage, is to just become better people. We like ourselves better. You change your thinking and you change your marriage.
I love this. I love this so much. If people want to take a deeper dive, there's a book that you recommend.
Oh, I like this book so much. It's called Us in Mind. Good old Ted Lowe. I just thought it was brilliant. He has a bit of a Christian philosophy, but I think it's good for anyone, no matter their beliefs. It really helps you understand and look at self, which I think is where the power is.
I love this conversation and this perspective, and your one-liners always on point, Liz. We love you. Thank you so much.